Moshe Katri, MD, Equity Research, IT Services and Payments at Wedbush Securities with us this morning. Moshe, pleasure to speak with you as always, right here on NDTV Profit. You know, what's difficult to figure with Indian IT companies right now is it the best bet or is it going to be a pack which is the worst hit considering all things that are happening? Let's just start with your overview of how you're looking at Indian IT companies right now.
I would say in general, I think it's a great question. I think we're in a very tricky kind of situation now, just because we seem to have another full start for this year. Remember, we've had 2 consecutive years with relatively kind of, flattish growth for most vendors in the sector. We started the year with a euphoria, believing that we're going to have some sort of a go back to normal spending environment. So far, it seems that, the general atmosphere, given the tariff situation, is more cautious than anything else. And that's why demand seems patchy. Demand seems patchy. It seems that budgets have been approved, maybe with some sort of a delay, which means that the year is back and loaded, especially for discretionary spending. And you do have some companies that are doing better than others, probably companies that are focused more on the cost takeout part of the business, some of the tier ones that are based in India, companies that go to market a bit differently, performance-based contracting, look at Huron, they're going to grow 10% this year. Companies that have a Latin America exposure on the digital side, Globant, 10% growth. So it's really mixed across the board. And I think that's why you've seen a pretty significant correction in the multiples for the sector year to date.
Okay, so let me get more specific, Moshe, in terms of what is happening in the United States right now, blowing hot, blowing cold on tariffs, uncertainty about how that's going to translate for the US economy. Is this a headwind right now for Indian IT companies?
Absolutely. Uncertainty is not your friend, especially if you have to make decisions related to discretionary spending, if you have to make spending decisions related to large contracts. All this historically has been impacted in times of uncertainty. I think that's what the market tells you. The market doesn't like to see this uncertainty, and therefore you've seen this massive correction in PE multiples year to date for the sector. And it is ironic because the budgets are here, but at this point, there's a lot of caution in terms of spending it.
Okay. Hi, Moshe. Good morning. In the next set of results then, based on what you've told us so far, and assuming that the base case is that we're looking at a flat 2025, what would you be what are you building in as a key negative and a key positive? What would put a smile on your face and what would cause you to frown?
I already have a smile on my face. Look, as I said, this is a very dynamic situation, and especially when you're dealing with tariffs. And it seems that a lot of those actions that are taken by the administration regarding tariffs seem to be more of a negotiation tactic than anything else. So if things get resolved, I would say things can really turn on the upside. That's why I call this a very dynamic situation. If the uncertainty continues for the next 6 months, I think that will impact growth for the space. So it's really dynamic and things can change very quickly. And, what we have seen in the past was that some of those negotiation tactics did work, and ultimately the parties reach an agreement. And once that actually happens, you can turn the spending kind of flow back on. And that's why it's so confusing in terms of what to do in this situation for a lot of vendors in the group.
Moshe, just wondering, for a sector wherein the debate is around whether there could be a few percentage points uptick or downtick versus consensus, and which has underperformed the broader indices now materially for the last 24 months, and one which is impacted massively by Trump tweets, if not the US economy, why invest at all? Why not wait for the dust to settle, the trend to begin, re-emerge, and then go out and buy?
You know what they say, sometimes the fear factor creates buying opportunity. And I guess a lot of this really depends on how are you looking at this from a 6 months perspective, from a year and a half perspective. It really depends on your investment philosophy. I don't think the March quarter is going to be spectacular. And as it is, as you know, the March quarter is not a great quarter for the industry. But post the March quarter, it'll be interesting to see if visibility changed, because ultimately for a lot of companies, they'll have to start providing guidance for the fiscal year. And so we'll have to wait for a couple of weeks to see where this is going. But, fear creates an opportunity. That's usually the case, right?
Just one point. I know you don't want to go to stock specific, but I'm just wondering if there are any favorites that you see from the Indian IT companies. Would they be on the large cap or the mid cap space?
Typically, companies that focus on the cost takeout part of the business are the large caps. So the way I see it, they seem to be probably better positioned than some of the others. They do have some dependence on discretionary spending, but not a huge one. So even in this environment, you can probably argue that they seem to be in a better shape. But having said that, even in their case, there could be some issues in terms of decisions on large contracts. As I said, uncertainty is not your friend when you're going through that process. But they seem to be in a better shape than some of the others, the way I see it. And as I said, there are some outliers, companies that are still growing 10% in this environment. I mentioned Globant, I mentioned Huron, and then the other one that is doing even better is a company called Grid Dynamics. So you have 3-4 companies that are doing better than others. And then, as I said, you have the large cap tier ones that should be in better shape than others as well.
Moshe, thanks so much for joining us this morning, and hopefully that smile continues to remain on your face the next time we speak.
For all of us. Thank you.
Thanks so much.